Reddit, what's your best good guy Greg moment? 2 years ago I was laid off from a cushy government job. On my way home from work the day that I had been laid off, I stopped at a local marine diesel shop to drop off a resume I had prepared in advance. I talked to the owner and he lays it out to me. I can't afford you. However, I need an apprentice. Do you know anyone that is looking for work? I called my friend that was unemployed. Told him to get his ass up to the shop now. He got the job. Learned how to rebuild V8 Detroit diesels, pumps, hydraulics. He eventually left and went into the trash industry. Makes more than I do and loves his job. The best part of this story is how he is helping his parents after his father just lost his foot to diabetes. So while paying for his own place and expenses, he is also helping his parents pay their mortgage. I am glad I got him that job. If you read this, AJ. Love you, man. I was driving home from Queens one day and traffic was pretty bad on the Belt Parkway. A lot of stop and go. Cars broken down on the shoulder is nothing new, but I saw an old Volvo occupied with an entire family at the side of the road. Their car was packed. I like helping those in need, so I pulled over and offered to be of assistance. The guy driving the car was heading to his wedding. The woman in the car was his bride. The 4 passengers in the backseat were her immediate family. Time was counting away and she still had to pick up her dress and make it to the chapel. We somehow squeezed everyone except for the groom into my car. He took a cab and I took her and her family to pick up her dress and then to her chapel. I took a couple of hours and a few gallons of gas, but we managed to make it just in time. I was just glad I could help. I found a dog wandering around my backyard sniffing at my dogs and being generally friendly. His tags had come off of the ring of his collar, so I didn't know who he belonged to, but he was too well fed to not be loved by someone. Took him to my vet to see about a microchip. He was chipped. Found out his name is Hunter. And returned Hunter to his family. My neighbors a side street block away whom I hadn't ever met. This all went down in about 3 hours. The family had been out looking for him and the little boy had been crying. Dad tried to palm me some cash for bringing him home. I said nope. Just doing the right thing, and I'd hope someone would do the same for me if my dogs had gotten out. I had a really good Saturday and my dogs had a new friend to play with for a little bit. It's not really a huge thing, but I guess it would probably count. I was on holiday and was walking down to the beach on a beautiful day. Gonna go for a swim when all of a sudden this guy on a motorbike comes ripping down the road and wipes out hard. I was the only person around that I could see. The guy's leg was chopped up pretty bad. Broken in at least 2 places and he was bleeding all over the pavement. I was wearing a sarong over my bathing suit, so I tore it up and used the pieces as a tourniquet. Called 911 and found some branches to splint his leg. Ambulance came about 5 minutes later. Never even learned the dude's name. TL. Dr. Good Guy Greg keeps his first aid license up to date. This was a few years ago. When I was between jobs and obscenely broke and living in Toronto. I was down to my last $10. That had to keep me for 3 weeks. It was a greenback. I took it to the bank to exchange it for Canadian. The teller cashed me out for $100 instead of $10. And I walked away thinking I scored big time. That would have been Kraft dinner and ramen soup for at least 6 months for me. As I was walking away, I felt bad that she would get in trouble. Went back and told her she made a mistake. Her eyes lit up when I told her. And she thanked me incessantly. I made it eventually. But that extra $108 would have been sweet. In a 1-week span in college I found a wallet with over $200 in it. It belonged to a foreign exchange student, so it took a little bit of searching on Facebook to find the owner. I was able to return it with everything left inside. Then later that week, as I was going out to a party with my friends, I saw an elderly woman get dropped off at a bus stop after grocery shopping. For some reason the battery in her power chair died and she couldn't move. I ditched my friends and pushed her groceries, and her power chair 3 blocks back to her old folks' home. I try to be a nice person whenever I can. The best way to help yourself is to help others. TL. DR. Found the wallet in college and returned it to the owner and pushed an elderly woman and her power chair back home on a Saturday night all in the same week. My wife and I were living with her parents and between getting another place to stay. Was watching some NCAA hoops when I looked up and saw smoke billowing from a house down the street. As I ran to the house, I heard someone scream from another house that there were dogs locked inside and that the homeowner was not home. I kicked the door in, got on my knees and crawled to the basement. The whole upper part of the house was on fire. Found the dogs hiding under a bed and got them out. That's probably the best GGG story I got. I went to an overwhelmingly white private school my whole life. And I remember back in 1st or 2nd grade when our first black student arrived. Anyways, he was by himself and always looked lonely. And none of the other kids really made an effort to talk to him. So one day I see him by himself on the tire swing, loafing around tiredly in circle. And I decide to go offer to give him a push. We became pretty good friends after that. Not a great moment, but just a little one I wanted to revisit for nostalgia's sake. A few months ago on my way to work, I found a wallet on the ground. I decided since no one was near it to go take a look. When I grabbed the wallet, the first thing anyone does is how much money is in it. I look and quickly am shocked by the amount of cash. It had $525 cash. I then ponder what I could get with this newfound gold. PS3. New computer parts. Portal gun. Anything. I then get to work. Use her license to find her home number. I then call it and leave a voicemail. I wait 2 days and I finally got a call back. She asked if any money was still in it. And this was my moment. I said yes. Alert. I then get her address and send it to her. I never heard back from her saying thanks or that she received it. Went to the bank last Tuesday. I always go inside instead of the drive-thru just because I am that kind of guy. While the cute teller is getting my money, she was blatantly flirting with me. I play along. She said something along the lines of, "Man, I could really go for some Culver's cheese curds." My original thought told me to go ahead and impress the lady. After she handed me my money, I went across the street to Culver's. Got an order of cheese curds with a free scoop of custard. Went through the drive-thru at the bank. Put the curds in the tube. Shot them up to her and drove away like a boss. I am interested to see what she has to say next Tuesday. TL. DR. Got that BTCH some cheese curds. Bitches love cheese curds. Since he'll never tell this story, I roll. I was on a day out in London with my then GF and we had a large argument. That resulted in me going home alone and her staying with her mates. Took me about an hour and a half to get home. Literally got home, booted up my PC and about to relax, and I get a text from the GF. My Oyster card is empty and I have no money. Quick phone call to determine I cannot pay for her ticket over the phone and I am on the train back to London in 10 minutes. Arrived to a very sorry looking missus sitting on the floor of Euston Station. I bought us dinner and since we lived apart, bought her a ticket home. And departed to my own. Alone. Felt like a proper white knight that day. One time, my mother was in the hospital, get her appendix taken out. I got lost looking for the bathroom and I wandered into some of woman's room. We got to talking. She explained how she was in the hospital because she had lung cancer and it hurt to breathe. I smiled and said to her, "It's okay. I know what you want me to do." I then covered her face with a pillow and held it there for about 2 to 3 minutes. Just before I did it, I saw a tear welled up in her eye. I know it was a tear of gratitude. A tear of pure happiness. Setting. A 55-mile-per-hour road running perpendicular to the road where I was stopped at. There are 2 children who are waiting to cross the intersection. And I am observing them. After about a minute of waiting, the 2 kids decide that they will just run across this street. They get to the other side. Then, one goes back onto the street to pick up a cell phone. At this same time, a person on their cell phone is approaching. Fast. In a moment of stupidity and genuine concern for the life of these 2 kids, I drive into the intersection and get T-boned. Hard. I passed out for a while and wake up in the hospital. The kids were okay, so I guess it was worth it. I do miss low car insurance rates though. I was on a train from London to Manchester last year when the ticket inspector comes walking down the carriage and stops at this guy before me to check his ticket. He doesn't have one. He jumped the barrier and was pretending to be asleep. He starts getting really upset at the inspector, saying he has to get up there because his girlfriend has been in an accident and he has to be there for her. Ticket inspector doesn't buy any of this, but the guy is getting properly stressed out and breaks down crying. I spoke to the inspector and told him I'd like to buy this guy a ticket because I believe that his story is true. So I give the guy his ticket and he starts talking about how incredibly grateful he is and how he will never forget it. He gives me his number and asks for mine. A couple of weeks later, he called me saying thank you so much for helping him out and that his girlfriend would like to talk to me. Everything he had said was genuine and he would have been utterly screwed otherwise. She's really goddamn happy and can't thank me enough for letting her man be there for her. Felt really good. I was walking to school from where I had parked and I saw a blind lady trying to cross the street. She kept taking a step forward and then one back because she kept hearing cars all over. I went up to her and asked if I could help. She said please and I offered my arm, which sounds pretty stupid in hindsight because she was blind. But she took it and I led her safely across the street. Well, kinda safely anyway. I didn't think about the part that she couldn't do the hurry shuffle because a car came around the corner. I just stuck my hand out in the stop command though when a car came. My friends laughed at me and said it looked like I was taking her on a date. But I didn't give a shit because I knew I did the right thing. I used to live with 5 other guys in college. My actual roommate had been single and had no dates in almost a year. My other suitemates all had girlfriends and constantly bothered him about it. One night everyone went out drinking except me. And my roommate texted all of us saying he was drunkenly bringing a girl home. All my other suitemates called me from the bar, asking me to come pick them up so they can bother him while he's trying to hook up. I agreed. But when I picked them up from the bar, I drove them to IHOP instead. I bought each of them the unlimited pancake deal and stayed there for almost 3 hours with them drunkenly eating pancakes and complaining about how they wanted to bother my roommate. Once my roommate texted me the all clear, I drove them back. I was behind this woman at a gas pump, and she was still inside her car taking forever. Then she finally got out and pumped $3 worth of gas and it occurred to me that she had been in her car counting change to see how much gas she could get. She had an old beat up car and a kid in the back seat. It was one of those gas stations where you pay at a drive-through window and the pump had a call button to talk to the attendant. I called him and asked him if he could tell the lady about to drive through that she could get $20 of gas and let me pay for it when I got up there. I could tell when he told her because she turned around looking at me with disbelief. I pretended not to notice, socially awkward penguin. By the time she exited the drive-through and circled back around to the pump, I was done and out of there. This girl I have a huge crush on. We've been in the same classes for about 3 years. We really get along. She has a boyfriend. Cool guy. She and I go out with a few friends. She gets a bit drunk and flirts all night with me. I bring her home. She invites me in, telling me she really could use some company. I know she loves her boyfriend and she would regret having sex with me. It's the alcohol talking. Cock blocked myself several times. Would love nothing more than to be her boyfriend. But man, you don't take advantage of girls. I just started high school and none of my friends were in my lunch period, so I sat with a few girls I knew but never really talked to that much. Well, it had to have been a month into school when I noticed a group of JR girls and some guys picking on this kid that sat alone on the other end of their table. I'm going to assume he had Asperger's. He was very socially awkward and just his composure, you could tell he was different. But anyway, they were picking on him and I don't know if he was aware of it or he wasn't really understanding what they were doing, but I took it upon myself to go up to him and invite him to sit next to me at lunch. After he got up and started walking to my table, I turned towards the group and told them that I've never been more disgusted in anyone's behavior than I am in yours. Well, from that day on they started picking on me and it got worse and worse every day. They even started to harass me online and my principal wouldn't do anything about it. Then one day the girls decided to corner me against lockers. I thought for sure they were going to hit me, but they were all talk and wanted to try to humiliate me in front of the whole school. But that experience changed me. It made me so strong-minded and independent. And I like to think that I somehow helped the kid even if he never understood what was going on. I'll never regret having them pick on me instead of him. When I was a little kid, around 5, I had a best friend named Bernie who got leukemia. He ended up undergoing chemotherapy and lost all his hair. He was feeling really scared and sad about going back to school with a bald head. He was afraid all the kids would laugh at him. So as soon as I got to school the day he was coming back, I told all the other kids that Bernie was sick. And that his medicine made his hair fall out and not to make fun of him, laugh, or ask him why he was wearing a hat. When he came in, a lot of kids were understandably curious about seeing a kid with no hair. But the whole class was extra nice to him and several kids said, "I like your hat. It's cool." Bernie started smiling and from then on it was NBD that he was bald. He died not too long after that. I was jogging in the park one day. They had security guards that rode around in golf carts. I noticed a security guard had parked a golf cart on a hill below the running path and was walking away from it, but forgot to set the parking brake, so it started rolling forward, gaining momentum. As I approached, at the bottom of the hill were some folks with a kid on a blanket in the cart's future path. So I deviated my course and ran down the accelerating golf cart. Took a flying leap, grabbing the roof bar and landing on the parking brake. The golf cart coming to a skidding stop a few feet from the stunned picnickers. They shouted something about Batman as I turned and continued my jog. I don't know what the FCK got into me for this one, but I'm driving home from a party, sober, and it was summer. Over and over I kept seeing these frogs in the middle of the street. So eventually I just stopped and began to shove the frogs I could see out of the street with a stick. Every now and then a car would drive by and give me a "what the FCK are you doing" look, and I'd just smile and wave. Must have stopped about 6 or 7 times that night and saved a number of frogs from being flattened. In retrospect, I'm not as much of a doc as I usually think I am. I figure this will get buried since the thread's been up for so long. But I went to see Testament, Megadeth, and Slayer in concert. As I'm standing around in the pit waiting for the show to start, I notice this little, like, my 5 feet at most, chick standing by herself. Anyone who's gone to a concert, especially a Slayer show, will know that she's going to get dominated in the pit and won't be able to see anyways. So I strike up a conversation with her. Find out that she flew over from Hawaii with her mother to see the show. Anyways, I offer to stick with her for the show and shove people off so she can see and not get trampled. Anyways, it turns out that she could pretty much take care of herself, and all the other gigantic metalheads were pretty stoked on her enthusiasm and gave her so space. But she never really was able to see much. She really wanted to actually see Slayer though. So we stepped back a little ways beyond the moshing and I picked her up and held her up for their entire set so she could see. I don't even remember her name, but I still felt pretty good about it. Last spring, I went to the theater alone to see Water for Elephants. There was a sweet older woman who sat down next to me and introduced herself, and a man who I believed to be her husband asked if they may sit there. Of course I wasn't going to deny an elderly couple to sit next to me, so I obliged. During the movie, I realized how evident the woman's dementia was, as she asked why a man was sitting next to her and slowly didn't remember who I was. Whenever she was frightened, there was parts that included the elephant being prodded or people fighting. She would get scared and hold my hand. One night I was driving home for karaoke with my friend back to my house to crash for the night. It was around 2:30 am and we were on a long road back to my subdivision with drainage ditches on the right hand side. As I'm driving quickly in the misty fog, I see a strange form on the side of the road. What looked like a body. I quickly pull over and get out of my truck. And see, it's a nice looking girl in her bra and skirt with her purse. I didn't ask questions. I just quickly got her into my warm truck, it was winter, and asked her where she lived. She seemed in a fog as I had just more or less woken her up. But she knew where she lived. I ended up driving her to her house, nearby mine. She was actually rather close by the ditch, and never saw her again. It felt pretty good to help somebody out like that. And I hope nothing horrible happened to her before she got into that ditch. There was an elderly man in my neighborhood a few years back. Mr. Lennon. And one day I saw him working on his yard and decided to help him out. Anyways, I end up helping for a really long time. Not cause there was a lot to do, but because he loved the company. It turned out his wife had died recently and I actually got to know him really well. To the point that he gave me some of his medals, from World War II I believe. In how I talked to him and helped him with his yard for a while, but eventually with school and sports we fell out of contact. He passed away a short while ago, but I like to hope I was being a good guy by helping him out and spending time with him. I was planning a disc golf tournament. And there is this homeless man I see almost every day on my lunch break. I usually go give him a cigarette and talk for a few minutes. Maybe buy him a burger if I've got the extra cash. Well, one day he told me a little about his past. About how his wife took everything he had. Took his son. His home. Everything, and since then he had been living on the streets in Portland where it rains a lot. I also found out that he likes to play disc golf. But hadn't got to play in years since he became homeless. I told him about my tournament and he seemed interested, but knew he wouldn't be able to go or he wouldn't be able to panhandle enough money for the hostel. Well, I offered to pay for him to play in my tournament, $25, and pay for his hostel for the night so he didn't have to worry. He was so excited. I gave him all my information. And where to go, etc. Even offered to pick him up in downtown so he didn't have to pay for the bus. A few days before the tournament I tried to find him in his normal panhandling spots. I couldn't find him. To this day I haven't seen him again and he never showed up to the tournament. I hope he is okay. But it did feel really good when I offered him the spot. And to see his face when he heard. Wasn't trying to be GGG. Just love people. And if you know about the homeless in Portland, they are not treated very well. And it's nice to know someone cares about you. Not me, but a friend of mine was involved in a deep relationship conversation with a girl he was seeing out on the street. She wanted him to decide what he wanted and he told her he was focused on career right now. Told her straight up. She was pissed, needless to say, and was yelling at him. He looked away and told her to hold on a minute. On the street corner was an old woman with groceries struggling to cross. This is in Nick to give more background. He walks away from the girl and asks this woman if she needs help crossing the street. She exudes a smile and thanks him generously for escorting her across the street and handling her groceries. He goes back across the street to this girl and she is just standing there breathless. Suddenly she says, "How the hell am I supposed to be pissed at you when you're helping old ladies cross the street?" He shrugs. Gives her a kiss on the cheek. And tells her he'll see her around. Strolled away like a boss and she went stalker crazy, calling him 100 times a day. But that's neither here nor there. TL. DR. Girlfriend pissed at friend. He helps old lady cross street. No longer pissed.